everyone, it's me Poojan. Today I am going to read Class 5, 5041, number 25, Magic Treehouse, Stage Fright by Summer. She said. They jumped up. Jack grabbed his backpack from inside the front hall. Dad, Mom, can we go out? He called. We'll be back soon. 10 minutes, no more, your mom said. Okay, said Jack. Close the door. Let's go. Hurry. Danny ran across the yard. He ran down the street. He ran into the woods. He ran until the Hello, Jack and Annie, said Morgan Le Fay. Morgan, Jack and Annie cried. They threw their arms around her. Why are you here? Said Annie. What do you want us to do for you? You have already done many good things for me, said Morgan, and for King Arthur and Camelot. Now I want you to do something good for yourselves. You're going to learn magic. Oh, wow, said Annie. Are we going to become magicians? Will you teach us charms and spells? Morgan laughed. There is magic that does not need charms or spells, she said. You find the special magic on each of your next adventures. How? Asked Jack. A secret rhyme will guide you on each journey, Morgan said. Here, this is the first. She held up a slip of paper. Annie took the paper from Morgan and read the rhyme aloud. To find the special magic, you must step into the light, and without wand, spell, or charm, turn daytime into night. Turn daytime into night? Said Jack. How can we do that? Morgan smiled. That's what you have to find out, she said. Jack had lots of questions, but before he could ask any of them, a flash lit up the treehouse. He closed his eyes against the light. When he opened them, Morgan Le Fay was gone. On the floor, where she had stood, was a book. Morgan didn't tell us enough, said Jack. But she left this research book, said Annie. She picked up the book, and it'll tell us the first place to go. She held the book up to the gray light at the window. The cover showed a busy river with boats and a bridge. The title was Merry Old England. What's old mean? Asked Annie. I think that's old way of spelling old, said Jack. You say it the same. So we're going to merry old England to find magic, said Annie. That sounds fun. Ready? I guess, said Jack. He still wished they would have gotten more information from Morgan, but he pointed at the cover of their research book. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. The wind blew harder and harder. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 2, London Bridge. Warm daylight flooded into the treehouse. Jack opened his eyes. Annie was wearing a long dress with an apron. Jack was wearing a shirt with puffy sleeves, knee-length pants, and tights. The shoes were leather slippers. Jack's backpack was now a leather bag. "These clothes are weird," said Jack. His voice was nearly drowned out by the sound of thundering wagon wheels coming from below. "What's going on?" said Annie. She and Jack looked out. The treehouse had landed in a patch of trees near a wide brown river. Wagons, carts, and people were heading toward the river. Ferry boats, sailing ships, and white swans glided across the water. "Wow, it's so busy," said Annie. Jack opened her research book and read. In 1600, over 100,000 people lived in London, England. At the time, England was ruled by Queen Elizabeth I. She was much loved by her people. "A queen, cool," said Annie. Jack took out his notebook and wrote, "London, 1600, Queen Elizabeth I. "I've never seen a bridge like that," said Annie, looking to the left. Jack looked with her. A giant stone bridge crossed the river. The bridge looked like a small town. It was crowded with houses, shops, and even a church. Jack found a picture of the bridge in their research book. He read aloud. "At the heart of London was London Bridge. The bridge crossed the Thames River. At different times in history, the bridge fell down, but it was always built again." "Oh, wow," said Annie. "That must be where the song comes from. She sang, 'London Bridge is falling down, falling down.'" While Annie sang, Jack took out his notebook and wrote, "London Bridge crosses Thames River, crowded with stores and houses." "Let's go look for the magic," said Annie. She read Morgan's note again. "To find the special magic, you must step into the light, and without one spell or charm, turn daytime into night." Jack squinted up at the sky. It was very blue, without even a cloud. "It's just not possible," he said, shaking his head. But he threw the research book and his notebook into his leather bag. Then he followed Annie down the rope ladder. When they reached the ground, they started walking toward the river. "Phew," Annie said, holding her nose. The river smelled terrible. No one else seemed to mind the smell, though. People were cheerfully piling into ferry boats, heading for the bridge. They all seemed happy, as if they were going someplace fun. A group of ragged boys brushed past Jack and Annie. They were about 12 or 13 years old. They were laughing and out of breath. "Hurry, we'll be late," one shouted. The boys ran toward the stone gateway leading onto the bridge. "Late for what?" said Annie. "What's on the other side of that bridge? Why are they in such a hurry to get there?" "I don't know," said Jack. He pulled out the research book. "I'll see what the book says." "No, let's just go or we'll be late," said Annie. She took off running. Okay, said Jack. He put away the book and ran after her toward London Bridge. Chapter 3, The Bear Garden. Jack and Annie passed under the stone gateway that led onto London Bridge. As they started across, Jack was amazed. The bridge was so noisy and smelly. Wagon wheels rumbled like thunder over the cobblestone. Pots clanked in carts. Horses neighed. Shopkeepers shouted, "Good pies, hot peas, new pins. Shoes, soap, salt." A shopkeeper caught Jack's eye. "What lack you, boy?" He shouted. "Nothing, thank you," said Jack, and kept walking. "Watch out," a cart driver yelled. Jack grabbed Annie's hand. He pulled her out of the way. The cart rolled past them over the narrow roadway. "Look," said Annie. She pointed to a bear in a wooden cage in the back of the cart. The bear had matted brown hair. His head was down. As the car rumbled on, Jack shook his head. What next? He said. Damn, said Annie, looking up. She pointed at a huge black bird sitting hunched at the edges of the rooftop. The bird sat still as they stared down at all the carts and animals and people crossing London Bridge. Jack shivered and moved quickly past the gaze of the giant silent birds. Finally, he and Annie came to the end of the bridge. They stepped onto the river bank. There they stopped and looked around. I wonder where those big kids went, said Annie. Jack studied the crowd heading down the road that led from the bridge. There was no sign of the group of ragged boys. Jack took out the research book. He found the picture of London Bridge. He read aloud. London Bridge connected London to the south bank of the river, an area where Londoners went for entertainment. The Bear Garden was a popular spot. The Bear Garden, said Annie. That sounds good. Where is that? Jack found the map of the south bank. He pointed to a circle that was labeled Bear Garden. Here, he said. He looked up, and there he pointed to a dark, round building in the distance. Great, said Annie. I want to see the garden filled with bears. Let's read, started Jack. Let's look, said Annie. She headed toward the bear garden. Jack put away the book and followed her. As they got closer, they heard loud shouting and laughter coming from inside the round building. Annie stopped. Wait, she said, I'm getting a bad feeling about the bear garden. Maybe we should read more about it. Jack opened the book again. He read aloud. At an arena called the Bear Garden, people watched bears fight with dogs. Animal fights were a common sport in old England. They are against the law today. Bears fight with dogs? Yuck, said Annie. I couldn't stand to watch that. Me neither, said Jack. Forget that place. He started to walk away. Hey, Jack, look over there, said Annie. She pointed to a cart nearby. That's the bear that passed us on the bridge. Chapter 4. A Midsummer Night's Dream. Annie and Jack ran over to the cart. In the back of it was a cage. In the cage was a big brown bear. The bear was slumped over, his head still down. The sign on the cart said, Dan the Dancing Bear. Dan? Annie asked, Are you going to fight? The lonely-looking bear raised his huge head and looked at Annie. His dark eyes were sad. He let out a low moan. I understand, Annie said. You don't want to fight. You're asking me to take you away. And he reached for the door of the bear's cage. Away with you, someone shouted angrily. That's my bear. Jack and Annie whirled around. The car driver was charging toward them. He's mine. I'm selling him. The man shouted. Come on, Annie. Let's go, said Jack. He pulled her into the crowd, walking down the road. But I have to save Dan, said Annie, looking over her shoulder. The guy wants to sell him to the bear fight. I know, but we can't just steal him. The guy is his owner. Jack looked around. He needed to get Annie's mind off the bear. He saw the group of older kids from the bridge. They were walking toward round white building. Hey, look, the kids from the bridge. He said, let's see where they are going. What about Dan, said Annie. We can figure that out later, said Jack. Let's follow those kids now. He steered Annie toward the white building. When they got closer, Jack read the sign out front. A play at the Globe Theatre, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Great, thought Jack. Annie loved plays. She loved acting in them at school. A man stood at the door of the theater. He was holding a box. A penny to stand, he shouted. The older kids dropped the coins into the box and went inside. Wow, the play costs only a penny, said Jack. That's cheap. But we don't have any pennies, said Annie. Besides, I want to go back and free the bear, Jack sighed. What will you do with him if you free him, Annie? He asked. I'll figure something out, she said. We'll figure it out when the owner is not standing there, Jack said. Right now, let's learn something about this play. He quickly pulled out the research book. He found a picture of the Globe Theater. He wanted Annie to forget about the bear. So he read with lots of feeling. The first theater were built in Old England. Because there was no electricity, plays were performed during the day when it was light. Almost everyone could afford to go. Neat, huh? Said Jack, and he sighed. Jack kept reading in a loud, dramatic voice. Sitting for the audience depended on how much was paid. The people who could afford the higher prices sat in galleries above the stage. Others stood in an area below the Boys, someone shouted. Jack looked up. A man hurried over to Jack and Annie. He was long-legged with a trim beard and twinkly eyes. I could hear you from across the way, the man said. You read very well. Jack smiled shyly. No, you are simply brilliant, the man said. And I am in great need of a boy who is a brilliant reader. Chapter 5, Stage Fright. Why do you need a boy who is a brilliant reader? Annie asked the man. Because I have just lost 2 fairies. He said. He pointed at Jack. You can read both. And you are nuts, thought Jack. Well, bye. See you around, he said. He nudged Annie to move along. Wait, she said. She turned to the man. What do you mean my brother can read both fairy? Read them where? 2 boy actors didn't show up today to play fairies, said the man. But your brother reads with such expression, he can save us all. Jack stared. Was this guy saying what he thought he was saying? You mean you want Jack to be in your play? Said Annie. Indeed, said the man. There are 3,000 people here today waiting to see the play I have written. We cannot disappoint them, can we? 3,000, said Jack. Yes, said the man. And one of them is the most important person in the world. No way, I can't do that, said Jack. He had never liked being on stage. He always got stage fright. Wait, Jack, said Annie. She turned to the man. You need 2 fairies, right? Yes, said the man. Well, Annie tilted her head. Her voice went up. I can read too. Yes, let Annie do it, said Jack. She's a great reader. She can be both fairies. But of course, Annie cannot go on stage, the man said kindly. Why not? Asked Annie. The man raised his eyebrows. Surely, you know it's against the law for girls to go on the stage, he said. Boys must play all the girls' parts. But that's not fair, said Annie. Indeed, it is not. But we cannot change the law now, said the man. He turned to Jack. So, Jack, will you join our players? No thanks, said Jack. He tried to walk off, but Annie grabbed his arm. Wait, I think I know what Jack wants, she said to the man. He'll only be in your play if I can be in it too. No, that's not what I want, Annie, Jack said under his breath. But Jack, it would be so much fun, she whispered. And there's nothing to be afraid of. You get to read your part. You don't have to memorize it. Jack could tell that Annie really wanted to be in the play. And it was definitely a way to keep her mind off the bear. Okay, he said, sighing. He looked at the man. I'll be in your play if Annie can be in it too. The man looked at Annie. She smiled eagerly at him. The man smiled back. Why not, he said, but Annie will have to pretend to be a boy. She can tuck up her hair and we'll call her Andy. Yay, thanks, said Annie with a grin. A trumpet blasted inside the theater. Hark, the play begins, the man said. He took Jack and Annie by the hand. My name is Will, by the way, he said. Come along, Jack and Annie. Be as swift as a shadow. The end.